In England and Wales, fraud accounts for around 40% of all crimes and is estimated to cost society around £6.8 billion. It's prompted the government's launch of a new national campaign to tackle the issue.
Well, in the early hours of this morning, police raided a home in London, arresting 2 people suspected of being involved in a phishing website. A SIM farm was also seized, believed to be used to send scam messages all together. We can speak now to Security Minister Tom Tugendhat, who is there as the authorities pounced. Good morning to you. I mean, how worrying is this whole situation with fraud? Because we know that it's, it accounts for a huge percentage of the crime that we see in this country, doesn't it? But there's a big feeling that actually it's a bottomless pit and very hard to be able to tackle it.
Well, good morning. Look, it's good to be with you because this is a absolutely vile crime, and it's something that I've taken incredibly seriously since I was appointed to this role, and the government takes very seriously as well. Let's just be clear, this is something we can do something about. In the last year, fraud has come down 13% because of some of the measures we've taken, and today we're launching a new campaign to help to bring that number down even further. Because if we can make people into harder targets, more aware of what's going on around them, then we can help the British people defend themselves. Now, of course, that doesn't stand alone. We've also got to work with the tech companies and the telecom companies to block fraud. We've started on that. And we've also got to work with the police to make sure that they're taking action. And as you saw this morning, I was out in that raid, against the phishing team. And we've already launched the new National Fraud Squad and the National Fraud Intelligence Unit. And as I say, together, so far, we're down 13%, but there's further to go.
But it still remains the fact that there's much more fraud here in the UK compared to other countries, isn't there? The National Crime Agency says it's because there's not much chance of being caught. Why are we lagging behind on this? Because there's a feeling that we're just a soft touch for the fraudsters here.
Well, let's be clear. One of the reasons for fraud, I'm afraid, sadly, is the English language. The ability, therefore, to spoof people in English is easier than if you don't speak German or don't speak French or don't speak other languages. And a lot of fraud is coming from abroad. Now, none of this is an excuse, but it is a reality. And that's why the work that we're doing with our international partners is so important. And I've been organising an international fraud conference that we're hosting in about a month's time, bringing together partners from around the world to fight this crime together.
Okay. But it's also prosecutions, isn't it, though? We know of 900,000 frauds reported each year, currently less than 1% result in criminal justice outcome. I mean, that's a shockingly low figure, isn't it?
Well, and that's exactly why we set up the National Fraud Intelligence Unit and why we're working with partners around the world. Sadly, a lot of fraud is coming from abroad. About 70% is coming from abroad. And that's why it's so important to prevent fraud. You know, we know in constituencies like the one I'm lucky enough to represent in West Kent, there are people who are losing thousands of pounds. A lady I represent lost £6,000 to people claiming to be the taxman. Now, they weren't, and we were able to get their money recovered. And the detective who led the raid this morning told me about an elderly couple in Manchester who lost £500,000, which their life savings was stolen from them. Now, this is why we've got to fight this crime. We've got to fight it not just by empowering the police, as we have done, and the City of London Police are doing brilliantly at leading nationally, but we need to make sure they have the resources. That's why we set up the National Fraud Squad to support other forces, and why we need to work with the tech companies. And that's why the Online Fraud Charter is the first time any country in the world has managed to get the tech companies to take responsibility, which is a huge change and one that we should be very proud of here in the United Kingdom, that we're bringing down fraud by making tech companies and telecoms companies take responsibility for their own actions.
A couple of years ago, when he was asked why fraud was excluded from the government's crime statistics, a normal kind of quote about crime coming down excludes fraud, the business secretary at the time, Kwasi Kwarteng, said it's not the kind of crime people experience in their day-to-day lives. That isn't true, is it? And it feels a bit out of date to have said that.
Yeah, look, it's certainly not true now. I mean, I don't know about you, Ed, but I mean, life's pretty full and you end up doing a lot of things online, whether it's shopping for my wife's birthday present, which happens to be today, and I've just remembered, so I'm going to have to get on with that, or whether it's going to the supermarket online and all the rest of it. So much of our life is now lived online that we've really, the way in which we shop and therefore the way in which we can be targeted is, it has gone online. And of course, the criminals have followed that. And so that's why I don't see a difference, frankly, between fraud in person or fraud online. What we're doing is we're working on all kinds of fraud and making sure that we're defending the British people from this absolutely vile crime. And that's why I'm very proud that we've got fraud down 13% year on year. But as you rightly know, there's a lot more to go.
Moving on to other matters, looking at the sort of, the political setup at the moment, it could be a bit of a bad week this week, couldn't it? The papers have been talking about this death spiral that your party is in, that you've already written off the by-elections. We could be getting bad results on inflation. We could hear that we're in a recession. It's not looking good at the moment, is it?
You're certainly not advertising it well. The reality is this is a really challenging time for the government. There's no great secret in that. But what is also true is that there's an awful lot that we've got to do to make sure we're looking after the British people. I mean, the whole point about government is to take difficult decisions and to make sure we're delivering. And that's why the priorities that the Prime Minister set out, including bringing down inflation and supporting growth, are so important. They're important to every one of us, and sticking to the plan, making sure we're actually delivering, is incredibly important.
So talking about doing your bit as a minister, since the by-election was called, have you done a visit to Wellingborough?
I've been campaigning across the country. I was in Scotland recently, actually.
Where have you been to Wellingborough?
I haven't been to Wellingborough, but I've been to quite a lot of other places.
And have you been to Kingswood?
You were. I'm sure you'll remember.
Have you been to Kingswood, Minister?
Kingswood is a long way away at the moment.
So you've not been to either of the two by-elections, which are happening in 3 days' time. Ed, doesn't that tell us something?
Ed, it tells you that I have been speaking at different events across the country. I have been supporting people in different areas. You know, you'll understand, because you used to organise election campaigns for the Labour Party, that you're asked to go and support in various different areas, and I've been asked to go and support in Scotland, which I've done with great pleasure, speaking up in Aberdeen only recently and in Edinburgh, and I've been speaking at various different events around the country as well.
Minister.
And there's a huge amount. I'm going to be in Cumbria later this week, if anybody wants to come and say hi.
We all know that if you think you're going to win, you visit. And if you think you're going to lose, you think twice. And you've thought twice on both by-elections this week.
Ed, not quite, Ed. You also know that well-organised parties organise their resources and ask people to go and speak in different places.
Talking about organising...
And when you were a Labour minister, you used to do the same thing.
Talk about organising resources. Is it time to bring back Boris? Because Kwasi Kwarteng has said that Rishi Sunak should swallow some pride, bring back the electoral force that is Boris Johnson. Michael Gove has been saying he has enormous gifts and that maybe he should go for a drink with Rishi Sunak. And is it time, do you think, to bring him back to give you the electoral boost that you need?
Well, we all know that Boris is a Heineken politician. You know, he does reach the parts that others don't, and I look forward to all Conservative voices, you know, speaking up for the party at this time. You know, we've got an election coming. That's not exactly a secret, and we've got to make sure that we've got all of our best campaigners out there making the case for a better future, and why we need another 5 years of Conservative government to make sure we deliver.
Minister, one very quick question. We've just been talking to the parents of the two teenagers, Barnaby and Grace, who were tragically killed in Nottingham. And there are lots and lots of different investigations going on, police investigations. The Attorney General has also launched one into the role of the CPS. But it feels to the parents quite haphazard, and there are gaps. And I just wondered, the Home Office has overall charge. Would you talk to them and listen to their view that there should be an overarching investigation and inquiry rather than this myriad of different narrow inquiries?
Ed, look, I mean, I must say I was listening to that interview, and the pain that any parent must feel on hearing about the tragic murder of Grace and Barnaby is just absolutely horrific, and also the murder of Ian. I mean, you know, to hear Emma and Sinead and Sanjoy speaking about it was just heartbreaking. So, I mean, I can absolutely commit that we will listen very carefully to what they have to say. I'd be very happy to meet them and to hear exactly what they have to say, or get the relevant minister to meet them, because what we need to see is we need to make sure that their questions are answered and that we get the best answer possible for the British people to make sure that such a horrific incident doesn't happen again.
Thank you for that answer. And may I give you one more piece of advice? Go and buy the birthday present.
Yes, that would be of urgency.
You've just reminded me.
I
can't believe I've done the morning round and literally only just remembered it's my wife's birthday.
I know.
Sorry, Ed.
And now you've told her as well, live on TV.
It's career-ending stuff. Yeah. It really is.
Apparently, there's good gift shops in Kingswood and good gift shops in Wellingborough. Just saying.
I look forward to seeing you campaign there.
Tom Tugendhat, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tugendhat.